What's up, guys? It's the Niggler. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That was that was 10 times funnier in my head. MTV Animation had a pretty good run. I mean, Beavis and Butthead, Daria, Clone High. It feels like for every critically acclaimed cartoon that the MTV network pumped out in the 90s and early 2000s, there was another insanely underrated one that would never receive the same love. We've already covered the underrated one season animated series about the small group of friends based out of New York in downtown. Downtown is amazing. I've told you guys that. If you haven't seen it, good. Go watch. But today we will be covering another criminally underrated MTV animated classic. This is Undergrads. Undergrads follow four lifelong friends who set off for their freshman year of college. While most friendships would start to falter at the prospect of going to college, gaining new experiences and friendships miles away from your hometown, not this one, as our four friends all go to school in the same town at the farthest about 20 minutes away. Now, before I tell you guys about how fire this show is, I think we should do a little character exploration to set the table. So let's start with the four central characters. First off, from our core four, we have Justin Gimpy Taylor, Star Wars superfan and absolute computer genius who can get any information he wants just by a couple of clicks from his computer. Now, while watching this show, I have to admit, my brain was a little fried. I mean, the only thing I have in my notes about this guy is various different jokes about artificial intelligence, calling him a human robot, the computer son of Elon Musk and shit. What's his name? Zay A13 or some shit. I just call him Zay, but whatever. I say all of this because Gimpy is genuinely that smart. He can find anything or any information that you need without leaving the comfort of his freshman dorm, which he rarely leaves throughout the first season. Now, Gimpy at times suffers from being too smart from his own good, as we see in some episodes as this genius turns into a bit of a superiority complex. With his lifelong friends, it's 1000% understandable. He is 1000% smarter than them, and he knows it. They all know it. But when it comes to the friends he's made at his school, Takerson Tech, he treats them like they're inferior, which, hey, I don't think they seem to mind, especially Mump, Gimpy's boyish and protective sidekick. I think that leaning into the reclusive evil genius with minions trait is pretty charming, as we get hilarious moments like in the second episode, Tradition, where he and said minions terrorize Takerson with a series of pranks under the alias G Prime, which is pretty much Gimpy's gamer tag, let's say that. Even though Gimpy isn't the central character of this series, I believe he's just as important. I mean, there's a certain charm that he brings to the show with the confidence he exudes that can never be replaced with a more tame version of him that's super insecure and unsure of himself. Next, we have Rocco, and Rocco is a lot. Like, while watching the show and writing notes for this video, the only notes I have for the character is, what the fuck is Rocco doing? Rocco, what the fuck? What the fuck, Rocco? Like, he's the jock archetype character who drinks way too much, barely goes to class, and is overall just around to create chaos. Wannabe ladies, man, huge party guy. I like when they explore this character deeper, like with his battles with alcohol abuse and his trouble with finding new friends outside of the friend group, especially in his fraternity at Central State Junior Community College. I'll say that my favorite moment of his in this entire series is when he attempted to create a rivalry between Central State and State U. Number 3 out of the core 4 is Calvin Cal Evans. Now, Cal has 0 haters. He has 0 problems, 0 issues. He gets all the hoes. He's good looking. He's a bit of a dumbass, but in the best way. He's undeniably the best friend in the friend group. You know, there's some identity issues towards the middle of the season, but they are quick and fleshed out as he realized that it doesn't matter what random nobodies think as long as the hoes love it. And that is something I will be living by for the rest of my life. Of course, like I mentioned 3 minutes ago, he goes to State U, where he's roommates with our main protagonist of Undergrads, Parker Nitz Walsh. Now, Nitz is the one out of the core four that we follow the most. Most episodes being centered around him and his attempts of gaining experiences from his freshman year after a very turbulent, if not boring, stint of high school. Nitz is shy, not that outgoing, very unconfident. Throughout the show, it kind of alluded that he's not as smart as Gimpy, but he's still pretty smart for an 18-year-old in his freshman year. Of course, we can't talk about Nitz without talking about the central conflict within the show. The slight love triangle between him, his high school crush Kimmy, and his new friend that he made at State U, Jesse. Nitz is head over heels over Kimmy, had been for years, to the point where it makes his character unbearable at times, but with Jesse it's different because of how polar opposite her and Kimmy are. Now, while Kimmy is more punctual and endearing, Jesse is laid back, going with the flow. If I was a freshman in college, Jesse is 100% who I would have went for. But as we go through the season, we see that Nitz has the exact opposite feelings. Like throughout the first season, he is all in on Kimmy, to the point where it starts to get a little stalker-ish. Of course, there's also a large array of minor characters in this show, like Craig, Kroger, Stoner Dave. A fan favorite that I've seen while watching this show is the Dougler, which I completely agree. Nitz and Cal's RA is one of my favorite characters, and he doesn't get a single centralized storyline in the entire one season that the show airs. But now that I've gone through the characters, let's go over what makes this series or one season so special, and that's the atmosphere. Now, I know that me sitting here and talking about the atmosphere of a bunch of drawings sounds a bit pretentious, but hear me out, you know? As a college student, this shit was like opening a time capsule, exploring many of the experiences and issues that college students face, especially in their freshman year. From finally having the freedom you've wanted for years, to immediately resenting said freedom and wanting to be a kid again, to school traditions, to parties, to in-school state rivalries, to weekday drinking, bad roommates, how and how not to handle women, final exams, financial aid, credit cards. Oh my dear God. Credit cards, no more credit cards. It covers the whole school shebang. When watching this show, I felt like the food critic from Ratatouille. I mean, my freshman year was in 2019, and we all know what happened after that first semester. It's felt like an entire decade and a half since then, but for a show that was created the year I was born, it's funny as hell how relatable it is. I'm still in college, and it feels like I'm still having freshman year problems. I think the show is great. I mean, the characters are very well written. The animation of each characters are unique. They don't get all profound and deep as most cartoons try to do after their first season, but we don't get a second season, so hey, we never know. I hate that this show didn't get to finish. I mean, especially seeing that the creator of the show, Pete Williams, voices all four central characters plus the Dougler, and it is said that he based this show off of real experiences of his freshman year of college. 4 seasons, 4 years of college. It could have all been so simple, and it kind of matches the charm of another MTV underrated classic that I talk about in this video right here.